Okay, thanks everyone for being with us for today's webinar. We're going to be covering the topic of direct mailing your library's newsletter. This is Charlie Taylor. I'm one of the continuing education consultants at KDLA. I want to welcome everybody. And we're going to be hearing from the marketing team at the Scott County Public Library here in just a minute. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Please feel free to use the chat pod in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen for any kind of questions you have for the presenters, or if you want to comment and share your thoughts or what your library is doing, please feel free to do that at any time. Also, if you have any technical issues, go ahead and use the chat pod for that as well, and I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. You can see right now the full version of today's slides is available in the downloads pod in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. That will also be available at the end of the webinar. So if you haven't gotten that yet, don't worry, you can get it at the end. Also, this webinar is being recorded and we'll be posting it to our archived webinars page, definitely under the marketing, public relations and marketing section within the next week or so, usually sooner than a week. And just taking a final look at our poll here, it looks like picking it up at the desk, so you guys printing it out and offering it to people at the desk is still the most popular way right now to obtain that newsletter, with website and email, so those online versions coming in next. And then we have it's being sent in the mail by 2 respondents. A couple other of you, if you're doing something different than the choices, please feel free to chat those in and share with us. And then we have one person who said, what newsletter? So that's great. Start from scratch. You're going to get some good ideas and information today. So I'm going to change this over to our webinar screen. Please keep typing if you have any comments or suggestions, things that you're doing. And I know we have a pretty decent group of people, a decent-sized group of people joining us from the Scott County Public Library today, so I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves if that's okay. I know we have at least 3 people presenting, so let's make them welcome, and I'm going to mute my phone and turn the presentation over to Scott County.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Min-Young Bowling, and I'm marketing manager here at Scott County Public Library. And I have here with me Rachel Toes, who is marketing assistant / librarian, and also have a outreach program. Her name is Maria Church, that is also involved in our newsletter very heavily. So we can start out, and I will let Rachel start us off at our humble beginning.
Good afternoon, everyone. So let's sorry, we're figuring out the slides here.
Charlie, can we get rid of this joint audio conference window?
Yes, there should be a little X. Is it like a little black box in the top right-hand corner?
No.
What does it look like?
It's just a floating window, and it says join audio conference.
Oh, okay. Just click
Listen only?
join and then click done.
So we need to enter the phone number?
No, choose the dial-in option. There should be a second option.
Okay.
And then you should be able to just make it go away because you're already on the conference call. So.
Wonderful. Okay, great.
There you go.
Okay.
I thought it was going to go away.
Technical issues. Okay. So, yes, when we began advertising for library events, we did all of our calendars in-house. Most everything was done in black and white, and it was all done in Publisher, and we used a librarian, someone before me, and then myself, who were, we were just self-taught for this, and so we produced everything ourselves, printed it on our copier, and made it available for the public to pick up within the library. We did have a mailing that we would send out just to our friends mailing list. So this was to the people that were friends members and had paid membership dues, and those were the only ones that we actually mailed to. We had a quarterly newsletter that we printed and mailed to our friends members. We discontinued that once we started an email newsletter in 2013. But eventually we made the switch to printing the adult calendar in color, which was big and exciting. But our process was still the same. We did everything ourselves. We would print them here, fold them, mail them, do it all in-house. And then in 2014, our director at the time really wanted to see us have a more professional look. So she wanted us to work on having this printed with a local printer, and she wanted to do more mailings. So again, we took on the task of educating ourselves on how to do this. We made the switch from working in Publisher to InDesign, and we worked with a local printer to get these printed, and we would print about 600 a month or so.
Right. I think at this time we were using InDesign, Publisher, and Photoshop.
Yeah, we did use a combination of all. And then we worked with the post office to get the permit that we needed so that we could mail these for 7 cents a piece. We still were only sending these out to our friends' membership list, plus local businesses and legislators. So we were not canvassing the entire community.
Not even close. Yeah.
Right. And of course, we still had copies available to pick up within the library. But then in 2017, we were beginning with our new 5-year strategic plan. And one of the goals for marketing was that we wanted to improve our awareness within the community about what the library offers. And we hired a marketing manager, which is Min Young, who had direct mail experience. And the goal was to be able to mail this to every resident and business in the county. And once Min Young was hired on, he really focused on updating the library logo and marketing our brand. And he also reworked our internal processes to help make this smooth. It was more than just redesigning our calendar. It was all about how we worked within the library, working 2 months in advance to get these events ready to publish. So, enter Min Young.
So my job was fairly outlined, and as I had mentioned a little bit earlier with my colleagues here, that I have a feeling that most libraries were doing the same thing that you were already promoting within the library with the library patrons that was already a fan of yours. So in order to reach your community or try to get patrons to recognize what you do, there wouldn't have been a lot of success because you would mainly be promoting just within. So with my mail background, it was all about coming from the corporate world. It was all about creating new customer base. So same theory applies when it comes to marketing and mailing. In this case, it's about getting new patrons to come to to your library. So marketing is the same. So direct mail, if you notice on my screen, it has to be about the brand. You have to create a brand that not only you believe in, but you can get everyone else on board with. And part of what I heard over my whole year that I was observing was all about I didn't know. If there was a terminology that you could coin about library, is people would say, I didn't know. I didn't know they did this, or I didn't know they did this or that. And you could basically create a whole marketing thing around that. I didn't know. So my task was pretty simple. Then I'm going to do something to let them know. And one of the ways is to do this newsletter. So if you notice on that screen, this is the changeover on the newsletter. We created a new logo. that was kind of updated from the current logo that they had before I came, to be a little bit more relevant, a little more updated. And also on the newsletter itself, you see it on front and back, simply because newsletters, you have 50-50 chance when it lays around, it's going to be laying it in the front or the back. And also on these newsletters, it was all about the library. It was not about the events or anything of that sort. It was about the library. It had to be about educating the library. The first picture on the left kind of reintroduced the library. If you notice, it says Discover with our new logo. And even the second one, it was all about the pictures of the library. And the third one really start to narrow and focus on specifics of the library. So let me see, go to the next one. So inside, what we did was on page 2 and 3, we focused on the topic, and we specialized to educate our community about that specific subject. Let me go back here. So if you look in the third one, the last newsletter, it says Kentucky Room. We wanted to focus on this because we thought it was important. We have many patrons that comes to this, and some people don't even know what it is, other than it just says Kentucky Room. So we broke it down. On page 2 and 3, we focused it, described it, took pictures of it. We try to make it interesting to look at, that you want to read about it. It can't just be about type. As you know, when you go shopping, you want to look at pictures, and if you're interested then you start to read about it. It has to be kind of balanced. So that's what that page 2 and 3 is about. The one on the right, where we're featuring art gallery, same thing. We did a cover on the art gallery, then page 2 and 3, we did a special article about it. Let me go to the next one. Find a variety of outlets. I'm going to let Rachel talk about the content.
Right, so for our newsletter, just like Mignon was talking about, one of the most important features is the content. And so when we have content, one thing we try and do is we use it for the newsletter, but then we also recycle it for Facebook, any kind of special articles or ads we might use within the newspaper, our library blog, our website, all of that. We have our online calendars where we have a lot of descriptions of our programs, and we will take that and use it for the newsletter and recycle it in all of our different outlets. We also focus on the highlight of the month. What is one of the biggest programs of the month? If we have a concert going on, something that's big, that'll usually be what's featured within the newsletter. And then we also have to take time to research some of the programs that are going on. If we have a speaker coming, sometimes staff has time to give that description to us, other times they don't. And so we have to research so that we can add that to the blog or add more information to the newsletter. And then when it comes to the content itself, one of the things that we ask is the so what question. So we're having a program, so what? What is going to excite people, get them to get off their couch and come and see us? And answering that question is what helps us engage them and hopefully we do have a lot of staff that will submit their own descriptions of their programming, which helps us time-wise. It also helps us understand exactly what they're doing with the program, but oftentimes they either do not have time to give the proper content that we need. They also might not be comfortable writing, and in that case, we need to step in, do the research for them, interview the speaker that's coming, whatever that might be, and help fine-tune that content so that it fits within our blog standards or within the newsletter standards. And then I'm going to pass it off to Maria for the Spanish newsletter part.
And don't worry, guys, we're going to do this in English. So as you can see from the content page that Mignon introduced earlier, the covers, when it comes to the translation, we want to keep this as consistent as we possibly can. So that means using the same images, using the same font types. Obviously, for those of you guys who are at all familiar with Spanish, if you took Spanish in high school, you'll remember that it takes far many more words to say the same thing in Spanish than it does in English. Unfortunately, that means that when the marketing team is done with the newsletter and it's ready to go to the printer, it's when I begin the work to translate it into Spanish. So while the printer is producing what Mignon will tell you is very many copies of our newsletter to be able to mail out, it gives me the time to go ahead and work on the translation. So I work on it from beginning to end, but as you can see, the final content is going to look a lot like what we produce for our English-speaking community. So you'll see the same front covers for each of the first 3 months of the 2018 calendar year, as well as the back. But we try to use the same verbiage that we would normally use, but like I said, sometimes we have to get into editorializing to make sure that we are translating it as accurately and as consistent as we can, make sure that the gist of the message is always there. So we'll move on to the next page. And how am I at that?
No.
Got it.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention to them. All right. So like I said, translations don't begin until after the English version has been completed. There are some very important tools that I use. We can go ahead and add these into the details later, but no translation tool online is ever going to be foolproof. It will give you pretty good content, but there's 3 favorites that I use. Google Translate, obviously, but it's been known to make some mistakes. I also use Spanish Dictionary, and another one called Reverso, which means reversing it. But starting with the front cover, I work through usually what is an 8-page spread, and that usually does take me about 8 to 10 hours. Now that 8 to 10 hours is what it takes me now. When we first started doing this years ago, it took me far longer because essentially we were on a month-to-month basis reinventing the wheel. Now that we have it more honed to a consistent system, this has allowed me to back that time out. But as Mignon mentioned earlier, I am part of outreach. I'm actually the Scott County Public Library's Bookmobile driver. So I'm not always in the building, so I work on the translations a little bit here, a little bit there. But in the weeks that the printer has it, I'll get through the content of this material. As I mentioned, that third point, it's very important to maintain the consistency of language and the tone for the intended audience. So if you're going to be talking about an adult program, you want to make sure that your language is appropriate for that audience, and the same thing when it comes to children programming. We do print the Spanish newsletter in-house, and this does save us money because even though there are ways to figure out which households has the first language being Spanish, that would take a lot more effort and money. And so when people see their English version of their newsletter arrive in their mail, they can be confident that we have the Spanish one waiting for them when they come to the library. And I do deliver it out to the community, as you'll see shortly here. Some of the constraints to consider, as I mentioned, it takes more space. So you have to be very cautious on how you use the spaces available. Sometimes it might mean shrinking images or expanding text boxes, however it's necessary, so that we are giving a good, accurate translation of the content that the marketing team has developed. Okay, let's see. All right, so this is me out in the Bookmobile, out in the community. These pictures obviously were taken in the winter. We got some snow. But working with youth, children, adults, everybody who I know where clusters of Spanish-speaking families reside in the community is where I will go out on my Sunday stops and deliver these. There are also Spanish, small little Spanish stores, like a taco stand where I know that a lot of Hispanic community members tend to congregate. I will drop off a bundle of our Spanish version of our newsletters as well as the English one to make it available for their customer base as well. And they are very generous in allowing me to do that. So one of the places in the picture on the right is at a trailer park. It's the office outside the trailer park, and you see there's some drop boxes, and I put our newsletter there. I can recognize it. That's actually what's from the month of April of 2018, that newsletter there at the bottom. That actually featured people working in the background here at the library. All right. So as I mentioned, the distribution through the Sunday Bookmobile stop within the Georgetown community. Let's see, that we deliver them to the local churches following the Spanish Mass service. I will go there and take those there, as well as I mentioned, some businesses and the mobile home park. And also, like I said, leaving a handful of them at the food market, and obviously having them available here in our newsletter, specifically in our international area inside the building. And, all right, back to Minya.
All right, thank you there. Yeah, so now we're getting to the gist of the reason why you're here, to learn about the direct mail. Let me just go back and explain to you how important the brand of your library is. You got to make sure that you take that seriously, because your brand injects how you are perceived. And that is just not about the newsletter itself. It's about the programs that you have. It's about the people that you have. And it's about everything relevant to the library itself. And merely what we're trying to do is have it printed and have it mailed so that our brand can be seen throughout our community. So why direct mail? It says here to support the library brand. First thing, staying relevant in the community. For those people who don't know what we're about, this is one way for sure that we know that we can reach everyone by directly mailing this to their mailbox, to their address. They're not having to search for it. They're not having to go look for it. It is literally delivered to them individually. And we're talking about Scott County in this example here. It shouts our message and educate what your library is about and how the library can help the patrons in your community. The fourth thing listed, convenience to browse in their face. It's literally in their face. It's laying around. You don't have to go turn it on. You don't have to, you're not running out of batteries or whatever. It is literally, when you go to your post office, you'll see it, or you go to your mailbox, you'll see it. When you come to the library, you'll see it. All the information is there. And the last thing there I put was created added value in lifelong learning. We have had patrons come in making comments now that they're looking for this. They're looking to see what's in this newsletter. What is the upcoming events? It's a habit. You're trying to create a habit to where, and you're training your customer base to look for this because we've got a lot of stuff that's going on here in the library. So, as a library, we are considered nonprofit, and for that, they have a category for us in the mail. It's called nonprofit direct mail. I will tell you some specs for our newsletter. It is 8.5 by 11. The paperweight is 100-pound text gloss paper, and it is 8 pages, and it weighs just over ½ an ounce at 0.625 ounce. And in Georgetown alone, now Scott County has 3 different towns. It's Georgetown, Stamping Ground, and Sadyville. For this example, We're just doing Georgetown. And for Georgetown, we have 20,831 pieces. That was back at the beginning of the year, I think, and it has grown since. Our standard mailing cost would cost you 16.2 cents. That is profit, not nonprofit. So you can see there, nonprofit mailing is 7.4. That's savings of almost 9 cents versus profit and nonprofit. So the whole thing, just to mail the newsletter to Georgetown, would be $3,374.62, which would have been the profit versus $1,541.49. That's almost double the savings that you would have if you had not used nonprofit direct mail. And all this information is on the USPS site. As Rachel mentioned earlier, you must acquire a permit to do a mass mailing. In this case, over 5,000 bulk mailing is required to do a direct mail EDDM program, which stands for Every Door Direct Mail. What's great about this program is you don't have to acquire a list. The list is already in the USPS website because as a post office, they acquire every new resident that move into their community. They acquire that data. So they have to constantly update that data every month. So this is one way for sure that you're not only getting the existing residents, but you're also getting any new residents that move into your community so that you don't leave anyone out. And there's the site, USPS website for EDDM program. And a lot of this can be helped by the postal office themselves. You can get a rep to come out and help you get this thing set up. But a lot of it, you can literally go onto their site and learn how to do this. So this is their site. Let me go to the next page. So once you get to their site, I'm just going to go through the process of what I do here to get our newsletter ready, to get it ready for the postal service. One of the first things that we mentioned earlier was that to do a newsletter, you got to get your whole library to buy in. That means your programmers, your adult programmers, your youth programmers, your outreach programmers, whoever is doing something in the library, you got to get them on board. Newsletter itself takes about 2 months from beginning to mailing. That's designing, that is proofing, that is sending it out to the printer and getting it back, then mailing it. That's all about 2 month process. So if you can get your internal people to work with you, to work 2 months ahead, you can do this. And that is if you're doing on a monthly basis. By no means, if you cannot afford to do this on a monthly basis, you certainly don't have to. You can do this once a year, biannually, quarterly, whatever that you can afford. You can do this by having to use the EDDM program to save some money. So on the website, you see on this window, it allows you to type in a zip code. In this case, Georgetown is 40324. And once you enter the zip code and click OK, you get this map. And I'm going to the next window. And on that field, just below where I have the arrow pointed on the, I can't remember what it says. Sorry about that. It says show table. I'm sorry, now that I can see. If you click on that, it will show you a routing of all the Georgetown mailing. And in those particular routes, it also gives you how many addresses are available in each of those routes. And when you click, select all, if you look on the right, it totals all that up for you. And that's how I got that number, 20,183. So USPS does a good job of updating the residents and addresses. And in this particular route, that's 30 routes and with 20,183, and it gives you the cost, $1,493.54 for nonprofit. Next window. So the next window you go to, it merely asks you, when do you want to mail these? And you pick out a date that you think is viable. For us, it's always like week before the month, that month that we're going to, to have it in-house. So if we're getting ready for, let's say, example, November, we would have it last week of October, so that they would have a week in advance to plan ahead for all the programs coming up. Okay. So the next screen here, this is also on the USPS website. If you're worrying about, okay, how do I know which printers does EDDM program? And not every printer is capable of doing the EDDM program. So they give you some examples of the printers that they have worked with. I don't particularly use any of these because we have our own. Yes, we use a printer in Michigan that I have worked with before, and we go through him to set all this up. So again, your USPS representatives can help you with this. Oops, let me go back. I want to point out a couple things here. As you go through doing this on the website, there are some forms, obviously, that you must provide. And here we have what's one of this form called facing slip, and other one called 3602N slip. These two forms are needed by your printers for them to sort it and box it correctly the way USPS requires them to come to them. It is very formulated. It is, this is exactly how they want it. Otherwise, they won't take it. So you got to follow the rules on this EDDM program. And just to kind of give you an example, this is how it comes to us. As you can see, every route is boxed by itself, and it has the zip code and the route number, and this is how I'm able to sort it out when it comes to me, to make sure that they are separated. Because if you think about it, the mailmen, every mailman are responsible for certain zones, and for that, every route needs to be specific to them. So when they take the bins, they make sure that every route has the quantity that it's supposed to have, in order to make sure that everyone has one when it gets to their destination. And I want to show you a picture of what it looks like after I get done sorting it. So each of those bins has one route per bin. So there's no mix and match. Again, mailman takes each of those that they are responsible for and loads it to their mail truck, and this is how they are delivered to make sure that everyone here gets one. All right. So that's basically end of the direct mail. There's some other couple process in this mailing that I just didn't want to complicate things. If you're really interested in doing this, I would have you contact me so that I can go step by step if you need to kind of give you some other directions that you need to make this happen. Because I didn't talk about two other towns, Sadieville and Stanton Ground, which is part of Scott County, that requires a little bit of different paperwork and different process to make that work. And I didn't want to throw that in here because it gets a little bit complicated. But I'd be willing to sit with anyone that wants to do this and go step by step and kind of go through details. So at this point, we can open it up for Q&A. If you have any questions. I guess not. You see an increase in programming. So we got a question here from Mary Russian. Did you see an increase in programming? The question is, absolutely, we did. Prior to us doing this newsletter, our programs were not necessarily getting filled up, I don't think, to its maximum levels. We are now to a point where we are doing the same programs maybe a couple of times, maybe even 3 times now, because they are being maxed out. So we know that it does work. It is definitely working, yes.
Well, and one of the goals that Min Young has for the newsletter is for it to direct people to the website. And we found that after the first couple of months of mailing this out, people were signing up, especially for the adult crafting workshops. People were signing up for them and filling them up, and now they look ahead to the online calendar, and when people are getting the newsletters in their mailbox, they want to sign up, and some of the adult programs are already full because people are just looking ahead knowing that they have to sign up in advance.
Yeah.
And I think that's a direct result of the newsletter.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's what's prompting us to create more sessions in order to accommodate the demand.
Yeah, so it has definitely worked. It is funny because we have programs that's a month out in advance and they're already booked because they got the newsletter already. And what was the community's response? I have not heard anything negative as of what we have done so far.
Right. And I've had people tell me that they look for it in the mail. They know it's coming every month.
Right. This is Maria. Being in outreach, I'm in the community a lot, and at first we were making sure that people were actually getting it and seeing it and looking for it. One of the things that we did not mention is that we kept track of when ads arrive at home, and here in Georgetown, typically those come out on Wednesday. So we wanted to make sure that our newsletter didn't get accidentally mixed up with all the other junk mail people might want to toss directly into the trash. So we have the newsletters arrive at our facility here at the library on Tuesday, and Min Young will sort it, like you guys saw in the pictures. He'll take it to the facility, to the post offices Wednesday, and it arrives in people's home on Thursday, so that we make sure that when it arrives, it's not going to get mixed up with the typical Wednesday stuff. That ensures. And so I'll ask people, did you see it? Did you look at it? And a couple of times we've been featuring some of the different departments, and people are like, I saw you. You're in the newsletter. And we've actually people have definitely pointed out they've noticed.
Yeah. So we have another question here about Stacy Stanford. Hi, Stacy. I know Stacy. How long does it take you to sort for the routes? When the newsletter are dropped off by FedEx, it takes me about a couple hours. There is physical labor involved in this. I will have to tell you, I'm not going to lie. So it will take about 2 hours. I think if you're just beginning, it may take longer, but once you start getting in the groove of it, you know what to expect, you know how to sort it out, and you know about how much each of these newsletters will fit in the bins, because you have to go get the bins from USPS according to how many you think will fit all of your newsletters. So all that will take time and adjustment, and that's also a kind of a learning thing as well. But it now takes me about a couple hours, sometimes longer. Charlie, okay, there's a question. Did you have any difficulty with buy-in financially, or were any staff members skeptical about the additional work?
That's a loaded question.
Far as the financial part of it, I think when they made that 5-year fiscal plan to hire a marketing manager and wanted to do some of this, I think they knew going in that it was going to be costly. So they had a budgeted accordingly. I will tell you, I can share some numbers with you on what we do. Now, we mail 10 issues right now because we have a couple issues that are combined issues, like summer reading. We do June and July together because we want all those parents and community to plan ahead for the summer because we know that they all take vacations. So we do June and July together, and it's also 12 pages instead of 8 because obviously we have 2 months of program and a lot more to say. We also do November and December together as a combined issue because
Holidays.
yeah, because of holidays, and we actually don't have as much, not like summer reading. So altogether we have 10 issues. And for those 10 issues, our total cost in 2018, and I know some of you are going to cringe when you hear this, it cost us $64,614.52. Now, you can say that's a lot, but I also like to think that for that money, we have educated and rebranded our library to be relevant in the community, to where we're doing lots of good. And that is a result of, just to give you a quantity, 243,153 newsletters in 2018-19. So that's a lot of newsletters, but at the same time, we would like to think that we educated our community, and we will continue to educate our community about what our library is all about.
Well, and you also reallocated some of our advertising funds to go towards this.
Yes.
Because we were advertising in other avenues, but it wasn't reaching the entire county as effectively. So that was part of this.
Right. Stacy, to answer your question, yes, that is the total cost for printing and mailing. Printing is more at $47,286.74, and the postage for the year is $17,327.78. That brings us to the total of $64,614.52.
Yeah, so if you were to think about the for-profit mailing, it would cost you 3 times more to do the same thing. That's how much of a discount you have as a nonprofit.
And another thing, too, that we mentioned when we did this presentation for the KDLA back in March was you don't have to go 8 pages. If you want to do a 4-page spread, obviously the cost is going to be less, the weight is going to be less, therefore your overall expense would be significantly less.
And printing it in bulk like we do also saves money. We were paying $2 a piece printing it locally. That was
right,
$2 a
as
piece,
opposed to
26 cents. And we are doing a large quantity, but at the same time, that's a lot cheaper than $2.
Yeah. You get the quantity bulk rate discount. So essentially, the EDDM program is mass mailing. And now some of you may say it's spam or junk mail. And I'm sure, those community out there that is not a library fan will probably consider it as such. But basically, that is one way, one reason why this program is affordable is they're not having to deal with any specific mail list. that they have to go through and sort out, because it literally is just, the post office gets your stuff and they're just putting it in every address. So they're not having to sort it out by any specific person or address or anything of that sort. It just, everyone gets one. And what a way to do this. One of the advantages of this direct mail is, now, I'm sure many of you do a lot of paper advertising with your local paper. And believe me, I'm not trying to bash newspapers because I do think newspapers are a very integral part of what we do, and we still use them. But the quality, and I'm not sure about where you are, but our local paper subscriber base is roughly around 3,000. Our whole population here in Scott County is over 56,000. And again, we're talking about almost 24,000 residents, businesses, and P.O. boxes. So we're getting into every hand, as opposed to trying to do newspaper that only reaches 3,000. That is if they're subscribing. The other aspect of having the paper is they got to find you. You're searching through a paper, maybe 10, 12-page newspaper. You buy the I don't know, 4x4, 6x8. I don't know how big your advertisements are. You're hoping people will see your ad as opposed to this is in your face. When they get this, it's all about the library and nothing else. It's hard to miss it, simply because it's coming through your mailbox.
Charlie, do you have any questions? Any other questions?
I don't think so. I think that looks like that's about the end of the questions. I want to encourage everybody. I'm going to just do some final wrap-up, and if you think of something while I'm talking, please feel free to keep those questions coming in. I'll just talk for another minute or so. A little bit of ending housekeeping here. First, we have to thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services, or IMLS, for their sponsorship of this webinar. Please don't forget to follow Katie Ellie on social media. We are on Facebook and Twitter. And you might have seen this before the webinar started, but just wanted to give a little bit of attention to our upcoming webinars in October. You can register for those and more on our CE events calendar. Couple of final things. The downloads pod in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen has the PDF version of today's slides, so you can download that and save it to your computer. If you want to go back and review any of the information that was presented today or share it with any of your staff or supervisors or anything, you can do that now. The webinar was recorded and it will be posted to our archive webinars page within about a week's time. It will definitely be under the public relations and marketing category, maybe a couple of others as well. And real quick, I'm going to, well, first I want to say if you're watching this webinar live, you'll be getting a certificate of attendance within a week's time. Additionally, I'm going to open a survey real quick on everybody's computer. It might pop up in front of the screen that you're looking at now, your webinar screen. If so, you can just minimize it until after, or you can go ahead and finish it right now. It's just a quick, I think, 4 or 5 question survey, but very important to us to help us continue to obtain our federal funding. And that's all I have. I haven't seen any more questions come in. Yes, I agree, Stacy. It was great. You all, that was amazing. I wasn't sure we were going to get any questions at the end because I think everybody's minds were blown.
Yeah.
But it was great.
It is. But one last thing I want to say is the direct mail. I know Rachel touched up on this. Is it will do wonders for your website, because its whole purpose not only is to brand you, but it is also to drive your patrons to come to your website to learn more. Assuming you have a great website with a lot of good information. So the website is the future. I think it will continue to be a very integral part of all the libraries. You can see it now. I'm sure everyone's electronic database is just blowing up because it's being used tremendously. So all of that information that is being collected through this newsletter is to kind of help also to drive all the electronic parts of your library as well, specifically the other website.
Okay, I think that's it for today, guys. Thank you to everybody. Let's thank Min Young, Rachel, and Maria for being with us today and sharing their time and information and their experiences on this. This was really, really great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
And I want to thank all of our attendees today as well. Thanks for joining us. If you need to go back and review any of the information, remember it was recorded and it will be on our archived webinars page. Whenever you're ready to exit, you just click that X in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Thanks, everybody.